The call came in at 2:17 a.m. A maintenance trawler in the North Atlantic had reported something impossible. Their sonar picked up a structure where no structure should exist. A clean geometric outline, sunk deep, anchored to the seabed. It was a ghost on the machine, an anomaly in a world that prides itself on knowing everything. Then the second call came. A body had surfaced near the same coordinates. By sunrise, the Atlantic looked calm, almost mocking. The victim was a man in his mid-40s. His hands were raw, as if he'd been clawing at solid steel. The coroner's report was chilling. He hadn't drowned. He had suffocated. He'd simply run out of air. Someone had sealed him in an airtight space and just walked away. Detective Mara Ellison stood on the deck of the Coast Guard cutter, the salty air whipping at her face. "What do we know?" she asked, her voice sharp against the wind. The answer was unsettling. Nothing. No missing persons matched his description. No offshore platforms were registered at these coordinates. Officially, this patch of ocean was empty water. Unofficially, the sonar images told a completely different story. A massive cylinder, reinforced with ribbed steel, larger than any submarine she'd ever seen. Someone hadn't just built a structure underwater. They'd built a secret, and someone had just died trying to escape it. As federal agencies began to circle, a new discovery surfaced halfway across the world in the Nevada desert. A hollowed vertical shaft plunging deep into the earth. Inside, reinforced concrete levels formed a series of cells. They were recently used, and every single cell door was locked from the outside. Mara Ellison didn't believe in coincidences. The underwater facility, the desert prison, they felt connected. By day 3, she was in a windowless briefing room in Washington, D.C., the air thick with tension. These facilities, a grim-faced official explained, sliding a classified file across the table, are containment sites. For who? Mara asked, her eyes fixed on the redacted documents. For people who don't fit anywhere else. The words hung heavy in the air. They were designed to be completely isolated, he added. Isolated from the public, from influence, from rescue. The files revealed a dark truth. Over the past decade, dozens of high-risk detainees had vanished from official systems, their records wiped clean. One name kept appearing in the heavily redacted footnotes, Project Black Anchor. And then there was the dead man from the Atlantic. Lucas Brandt, a private logistics contractor. He wasn't a prisoner. He was part of the machine that built these places. If Brandt helped create these inescapable tombs, why did he die inside one of them? The investigation led to a grainy surveillance video from 3 weeks earlier. It showed Brandt, agitated, in a heated argument with a woman, Dr. Elena Kovacs, a brilliant structural engineer specializing in extreme environment architecture, underground bunkers, subsea installations, black site facilities that governments officially denied commissioning. Was she the architect of these prisons? Did she know why Brandt was dead? Mara realized she wasn't just chasing a killer anymore. She was pulling at a thread that could unravel a conspiracy hidden in the deepest, darkest corners of the world. The kind of secret that people don't just kill for, but build entire worlds to protect. And as she prepared to find Dr. Kovacs, she knew that some depths are better left undisturbed. But it was already too late for that. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. She had gone missing 2 days after that argument. Her apartment had been wiped clean. Laptop gone. Notes burned in the sink. No sign of forced entry. Just a single phrase written on the bathroom mirror in condensation, later preserved by forensic photography. They don't intend to let anyone out. That was when the case stopped being about a body in the ocean and started being about people trapped where no one was supposed to look. Mara flew to Europe under a cover assignment, officially consulting on a corporate espionage case. Unofficially, she was chasing ghosts. Elena Kovacs' work history was impressive and alarming. She had consulted on subterranean prisons designed to hold individuals deemed too dangerous, too influential, or too politically inconvenient to place in conventional systems. Her designs focused on one principle above all else: psychological collapse through isolation. No natural light, no human voices, no sense of time. Places where prisoners didn't just serve sentences. They disappeared. The deeper Mara went, the more resistance she encountered. Files delayed. Requests denied. Calls unreturned. It wasn't one agency stonewalling her. It was all of them. Someone high up wanted Project Black Anchor to stay buried. Then came the break no one expected. A janitor at a Brussels transit hub turned in a discarded burner phone found taped beneath a bench. Forensics recovered one unsent message drafted hours before the phone died. It was addressed to Elena. "I can't live with this anymore. They're not detainees. They're experiments. If I disappear, follow the supply routes. The water site is just the beginning." The message was signed with a single letter. L. Lucas Brandt had tried to warn her, and someone had silenced him. As night fell over the city, Mara stood alone in her hotel room, staring at the map pinned to her wall. Supply routes crisscrossed oceans and deserts, leading to places chosen not for convenience, but for isolation. Underwater, underground, unreachable. Prisons designed not to hold criminals accountable, but to erase them quietly. Her phone buzzed. A restricted number. The line went dead. Minutes later, her laptop screen flickered to life on its own. A live camera feed appeared. A narrow concrete cell. No windows. No furniture. Just a man sitting on the floor, his face pale, eyes hollow. He looked directly into the camera and whispered one sentence before the feed cut to black. "They're moving us." Mara recognized him instantly. He was supposed to be serving a life sentence in a maximum security prison. Official records said he'd never left. But the truth was far worse. Because if he was here, wherever here was, then the world's most isolated prisons weren't just real. They were still operating. And someone had just realized she was getting too close. When investigators later forced open a sealed access hatch beneath the Nevada desert, they expected abandoned cells. What they found instead would change the case forever. But that door hadn't been locked to keep people out. It had been locked to keep something in. Beneath the sun-scorched earth of the Nevada desert, something has been sleeping. Not a monster, not a relic of a forgotten age, but a secret. A secret buried so deep, its discovery would shatter the very foundations of the world we thought we knew. For years, whispers and rumors had circulated among the fringes. Tales of a shadow network, a series of clandestine facilities hidden in plain sight. They called it the Hollow Earth Project, a dismissive name for a terrifying reality. But for Special Investigator Mara Ellison, the whispers were becoming screams. It all started with a seismic anomaly, a tremor too localized, too rhythmic to be natural. It pulsed from a forgotten corner of the desert, a place wiped from all modern maps. Leading her specialized team, Mara found what others had overlooked: a subtle distortion in the landscape, a service entrance masked by holographic camouflage. The air hummed with a low, oppressive frequency as they descended into the earth, into a sterile, concrete labyrinth that reeked of ozone and disinfectant. The facility was eerily silent, yet felt occupied. Empty workstations flickered with dormant data, hallways stretched into impossible darkness, and the only sound was the echo of their own heartbeats. As her tech specialist, Ben, bypassed the first layer of security, the screens lit up not with weapon schematics or research data, but with faces. Hundreds of them. Thousands. It was a database, a catalog of individuals from all walks of life, from all over the globe. Each file was marked with a status: acquired, processed, relocated. A cold dread washed over Mara. This wasn't a research lab. It was a holding facility, a human warehouse. But where were the people? The holding cells were empty. The medical bays were spotless, showing no signs of recent use. It was as if they had all vanished into thin air. The deeper they went, the more twisted the puzzle became. They found evidence of advanced behavioral modification, memory alteration technology, and something called neurological imprinting. These people weren't just being held. They were being reprogrammed, their identities erased and replaced. Mara realized the chilling truth. This facility wasn't the final destination. It was just one node in a vast, global network. She found a fragmented map, a web connecting dozens of these sites. Underneath bustling cities, beneath frozen tundras, hidden within deep-sea trenches. They were everywhere. A sudden system alert blared through the complex. They had been discovered. The dormant facility was waking up. Automated defense systems activated, and heavy blast doors began to seal their escape route. Ben frantically tried to download the critical data, the list of names, the locations of the other sites, while the rest of the team provided cover. Mara knew they were racing against a faceless enemy, A global conspiracy so powerful it could operate with complete impunity. They weren't just running from automated turrets. They were running from the architects of this new world order. As the data transfer reached its final percentage, a live feed flickered onto the main screen. A man in a tailored suit, his face obscured by digital static, spoke in a calm, chilling voice. Investigator Ellison, you have trespassed where you do not belong. The world requires order. We provide it. You can't stop what is already done. The connection cut out, leaving Mara with a horrifying choice. The data was their only weapon, but escaping with it seemed impossible. As the first containment door slammed shut behind them, trapping them in the heart of the machine, Mara looked at her team. This was no longer just an investigation. It was a war for the truth, and it had just begun. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. We'd love to hear your theories about the conspiracy in the comments below. See you next time. Where do they go? Mara asked. Reeves slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was a map of the Arctic Circle. Here, he said, tapping remote, ice-covered waters, decommissioned drilling platforms, and submerged research stations from the Cold War. And here, and Site B. Mara pressed. Reeves hesitated. That one scared me enough to stop looking. Why? Because Site B doesn't show up on maps. It shows up in gaps. He zoomed in on satellite imagery where data had been inexplicably redacted or replaced with static. Somewhere between land and sea, he said. Somewhere jurisdiction stops matching. As they spoke, a black SUV idled across the street. Reeves noticed it too late. The cafe window shattered inward, and chaos erupted. Before Mara could even draw her weapon, Reeves was dragged from his chair and thrown into the SUV, which vanished within seconds. By the time authorities arrived, the cafe's security footage had been remotely wiped. Another witness erased. That was the moment Mara understood the scale of what she was up against. This wasn't just a rogue operation. This was a doctrine. Back in Washington, a classified emergency briefing convened without her. She only found out because a junior analyst she'd once mentored leaked her the agenda. Project Black Anchor. Strategic Necessity Review. They weren't shutting it down. They were debating whether to expand it. So Mara went rogue. She handed her badge to no one, informed no supervisor, and disappeared from official channels. Using fragments of Reeves' data, she triangulated one location that hadn't yet gone dark. A structure built into the seabed beneath a decommissioned oil platform in the North Sea. Site B. Getting there meant working outside the law she'd spent her career enforcing. It meant trusting people she'd once put behind bars. She boarded a retrofitted research vessel under a false name, the crew unaware of the real reason they'd been paid so well to sail into restricted waters. As the platform rose from the fog, rusted and silent, the sea around it felt wrong, too still, as if holding its breath. Below the platform, the underwater access hatch waited. They descended in a submersible just large enough for 4 people. As pressure mounted, the steel groaned, a stark warning to turn back. The hatch opened. Inside was a corridor lit by harsh white panels, spotless and clinical. No signs of abandonment, no signs of evacuation. This site was active. They moved quickly, documenting everything. Cells lined the walls, each identical. Most were empty, but not all. In the 5th cell on the left, a man lay curled on the floor, his skin pale, his eyes unfocused. When the door opened, he flinched as if expecting pain. Mara knelt. "What's your name?" The man struggled to speak. "Names get taken," he whispered. "We're catalog numbers now." He told her they were moved every few months. Underground. Underwater. Sometimes somewhere colder than the sea itself. No trials. No sentences. Just indefinite containment. "Why?" Mara asked. The man laughed weakly. "Because we know things." Before he could say more, the lights went out. Emergency sirens screamed to life. "This is a controlled breach," a voice echoed over the intercom. Calm, authoritative, and chillingly familiar. Mara's blood ran cold. She recognized the voice. It belonged to the man who had chaired the briefing she was never invited to. The man who had signed off on Project Black Anchor. "Detective Ellison," the voice said. "You shouldn't have come here." Water began flooding the corridor. This wasn't an evacuation. It was an execution. As alarms blared and the structure trembled, Mara realized the truth they'd been hiding all along. These prisons weren't designed to isolate criminals from the world. They were designed to isolate truths from humanity. And if she didn't escape Site B alive, she would become just another number, buried beneath steel, water, and silence. Above them, the sea pressed closer, and someone was watching, deciding who would be allowed to surface. What truths do you think are worth burying at the bottom of the ocean? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe. The water reached Mara's knees before the sirens cut out. Silence followed. Thick, crushing silence, broken only by the groan of steel as Site B adjusted to a protocol that had never been written for survival. Red emergency lights flickered on, bathing the corridor in a sickly glow. Somewhere above them, valves were opening and closing with mechanical precision, deciding which sections would flood first. The voice returned over the intercom, calm and unmistakably satisfied. You see, Detective Ellison, Project Black Anchor was never about detention. It was about containment, of information, of influence, of instability. Mara helped the prisoner to his feet, her mind racing. You're murdering people. A pause. No, the voice replied. We're preventing wars. The water surged higher. Her team scrambled back toward the submersible bay, hauling evidence drives, dragging the weakened detainee between them. The corridors branched unexpectedly, walls shifting as hidden bulkheads sealed off entire wings. The facility was reconfiguring itself, an architectural maze designed to disorient anyone who didn't know it intimately. This was no prison. It was a weapon. They reached the bay just as a blast door slammed shut behind them, locking off the detention wing forever. Through the thick observation glass, Mara saw silhouettes still trapped inside other cells, hands pressed against the barrier, faces twisted in silent screams. The door did not reopen. The submersible launched seconds before the bay flooded completely, shooting upward as the facility below began its controlled collapse. Through the viewport, Mara watched Site B disappear into the dark, swallowed by the sea with clinical efficiency. Erased. Back on the surface, the oil platform detonated, flames licking the fog as if to erase even the idea that anything had ever been there. Official reports would later label it an industrial accident. Mara knew better. They reached shore under radio silence. The rescued detainee, catalog number D417, was rushed to a secure medical site that technically didn't exist. Before doctors sedated him, he grabbed Mara's sleeve with surprising strength. "They'll come for you," he whispered. "You saw too much." "I won't stop," Mara said. He managed a weak smile. Neither did the others. "They?" she asked. But he was already slipping away. Within hours, the world began rewriting itself. Satellite imagery updated. Maritime logs adjusted. Seismic data reclassified. News cycles filled with distractions, political scandals, market crashes, celebrity disasters. The story of a mysterious structure beneath the ocean vanished beneath louder noise. And then the files started leaking. Not from Mara, from everywhere. An anonymous drop flooded independent journalists across the US and Europe with fragments, transport manifests, architectural schematics, internal memos stamped Black Anchor authorization. Enough to suggest something monstrous without revealing the full shape of it. Governments denied everything. But denial doesn't work when patterns emerge. Families of missing detainees began comparing notes. Journalists connected dots. A senator asked a question on record that made the room go quiet. What happens to prisoners when the justice system decides they are too dangerous to exist? Mara went public the only way she could, through testimony that skirted classified boundaries while exposing moral rot. She didn't name the project. She described the logic behind it. Isolation as control, secrecy as policy, disappearance as solution. The man behind the voice, the architect of Black Anchor, never appeared in public again. His resignation letter cited health concerns. His successor promised reform. Site B was declared a myth. But the leaks didn't stop. A former contractor in Iceland came forward, then a logistics officer in Canada, then a structural engineer who admitted she helped design pressure-sealed cells for environments without oversight. Each story filled in another piece of the puzzle. There had never been one prison. There had been dozens. Underground facilities beneath deserts and mountains. Underwater structures anchored to seabeds. Mobile containment units disguised as research vessels. Even rumors of hybrid sites built into artificial islands. Places where land and sea blurred just enough to confuse jurisdiction. Black Anchor wasn't a location. It was a philosophy, and philosophies don't die easily. Mara thought the story ended when oversight committees formed and funding mysteriously vanished from certain black budget accounts. She thought sunlight had finally done its job. Then, 3 months later, a body washed up on the coast of northern Scotland. Male, mid-50s, no identification, hands torn raw, lungs clean. This time, carved into the inside of his wrist was a symbol investigators hadn't seen before. A horizon line splitting a circle. The third category. Mara stood on the rocky shore as forensic teams worked around her, the wind howling like a warning. She didn't need a report to know what this meant. Site B hadn't been the end. It had been a test. Someone, somewhere, had refined the concept, improved it, hidden it better. That night, she received a package at her door. No return address. No postage. Inside was a flash drive and a single sheet of paper. If you're reading this, they moved us again. This one isn't underwater. It isn't underground. It's both, and it's still running. The drive contains schematics unlike anything she'd seen before. Modular structures capable of being submerged, buried, or relocated entirely. Prisons that could disappear overnight. Perfect isolation. Perfect deniability. Mara understood the final truth with chilling clarity. The world's most isolated prisons were never meant to hold criminals forever. They were meant to outlast accountability. She looked out at the dark horizon, knowing the story would never really end, only evolve. And somewhere, behind steel and silence, someone was counting on the world to forget again. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because the truth doesn't stay buried on its own.